right, so here we've got some triangles, but again, we can just extend these lines. We can even turn it so that way it looks a little more like we're used to. So I'll go ahead and turn it. So if you were to pick up your paper and shift it to the right, or turn it to the right so that those parallel lines were horizontal, that's how I'm going to draw this one. I'll try to keep it as similar to what it was as I can. All right. This is not the best drawing, but it'll work. All right, so essentially I've just rotated it sideways, so my initial shape is just right here, but I've extended those lines. All right, so I know that these are parallel, and it gives me, let's see, this one here is 3x plus 10, and then up top it's x plus 40. So looking at, I have two parallel lines, then with my transversal, so this is my transversal, that the one I drew an arrow to. And so looking at my angles here, I have the x plus 40 up top and then the 3x plus 10 towards the bottom. They're actually in the same position. They're both on the top left angle of their cluster. And so because they're corresponding, I know that their measures must be congruent because I've got parallel lines. So I can go ahead and set those equal to each other. So I've got x plus 40 is equal to 3x plus 10. So now combining my terms, I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. And so I've got 30 is equal to, x plus 30 is equal to 3x. And now subtracting x, 30 is equal to 2x, divide by 2. I get 15 is equal to x. Oops, I made a mistake. Let's see, x plus 40 is equal to 3x. Oh, it's minus 10, not plus 10. Oops. Oh well. Okay, so now if this is minus 10, this will change my answer here. Okay, so this becomes, I have to add 10 to both sides. And so 40 plus 10 becomes 50. So I have x plus 50 is equal to 3x. And now if I subtract x from both sides, I have 50 is equal to 2x, and then dividing by 2, I should get x is equal to 25. All right, we've got a few more. Okay, so solve for x in the figure below. Notice we have parallel lines with our transversal, so how would we relate these two angles is my first question. So they're on opposite sides of my transversal, and then they're inside of those parallel lines. So these are going to be alternate interior angles, which means because the lines are parallel, it means that those are going to be congruent. So I can set my equation so that we have 4x minus 10 is equal to 58. So now adding 10 to both sides, we have 4x is equal to 68. And then I will divide by 4. And I should get, let me think for a minute. I believe 17. And that's correct. So again, the hardest part is just how do I set up this equation? So looking at this one here, we need to figure out how those two angles are related. So I've got 3y plus 53 and 7y minus 55. So notice how because I have parallel lines, I can make some conclusions. So these angles are outside of my parallel line, so it's going to be exterior, and then they're on opposite sides of my transversal, so they're going to be alternate exterior angles. And because they're alternate exterior angles and my lines are parallel, I know they're going to be congruent. So my equation is going to be 3y plus 53 is equal to 7y minus 55. All right, so I'm going to add 55 to both sides. And I get 3y plus 108 is equal to 7y. Subtract 3y from both sides. I get 108 is equal to 4y. Divide both sides by 4, and you should get 27 is equal to y. The answers say x, they should say y. All right, two more. These are trickier. Which of the following statements A, B, or C is false based on the figure below? So in order to determine this, we're going to need to solve for all of those angles. So I'm going to go ahead and redraw this just because I want to be able to mark it up. And again, this is like probably one of the best strategies you can use in geometry, is just redrawing your figures and then marking them up on your own. Okay, so then I've got parallel lines. And now I just need to fill in everything it gave me. So this is 116, that's Z, 73 degrees, Y and X. Okay. So first we need to kind of figure out, well, which of these could I, solve easily? So I'm going to go ahead and extend my lines just so we can see it a little better. So you can imagine these go on forever and ever. So I'm going to look at Z first. And so because that 116 degrees and Z, they're in between two parallel lines and they're on the same transversal. Those are going to be consecutive interior angles, which means their sum should be 180. So I'm going to take 116 plus Z is equal to 180. Subtract 116 from both sides, and we should get Z is equal to 64 degrees. All right, so now let's see if we can determine X and Y. So for X and Y, I'm going to just focus on my transversal that's on the right. So I've got my two parallel lines and then that transversal on the right. I'm going to look at the 73 and X. So those are on opposite sides of my transversal, but they're inside of my parallel line. So those are alternate interior angles, which means they are congruent. So X is going to be 73. And now to determine Y, I'm actually going to use X. So because Y and X form a linear pair, I know that their sum should be 180. So I'll do 180 is equal to 73, which is what we found for X, plus Y. So then subtracting 73, I get 107 for Y. All right, so now let's go back over to our problem. So it wants us to figure out which of these statements is false. So Y is 107 degrees, that's true. Z is 64 degrees, that's true. X is 73, so this one would be incorrect because it should say 73, not 116. All right, last problem. Solve for X in the figure below. So we've got parallel lines with the transversal, so we know we can actually make some conclusions about the measures. So looking at how we would name these angles, they're on the inside of my parallel lines and they're on the same side of the transversal. So these are going to be consecutive interior angles, which means they should be supplementary. So if I were to add those two measures together, I should get 180. So let's go ahead and create that equation. So 2x plus 43 plus 2x minus 3 is equal to 180. So now combining my like terms, I end with 4x plus 40 is equal to 180. Subtract 40 from both sides. We're left with 4x is equal to 140. And now we should, dividing by 4, we should get x is equal to 35. And we're done. So those are the practice problems. If that was confusing to you and you don't understand why I did the things that I did, please reach out because I want to make sure you know how to do this type of problem because once you get them, they're pretty simple, so they're good to talk about. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, reach out if you have questions.